Would Baylor be interested in snagging Utah's starting quarterback out of the portal? It's not as crazy as you might think. Let's get Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. Thanks so much for making it your first listen today and every day. The portal is open, and so now, of course, all hell will break loose. We'll take a look at who has already gone into the portal for Baylor, who they might be targeting, maybe even an outside-the-box look. If you've already listened to the intro, you probably know where that's headed. And not exactly a great day for Baylor basketball, although it is historic, just for the wrong reasons. We'll go over all that and more on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Welcome to the season of the portal. All right, we are in between Thanksgiving and rivalry week, and the next thing we've got on the horizon, of course, is Christmas and bowl season. But in between, it is absolute chaos. The portal opened yesterday, as you're listening to this, Monday, today, as I'm recording this. And I will just put this warning out there before we even get into it. There is going to be stuff breaking every hour. I will keep you up to date as much as I possibly can on this channel as to who is going out and who is coming in to this Baylor football program. Thankfully, it has been a slow start, but even with Baylor's success going into this bowl game, don't be surprised if they've got more than a handful of guys going into the transfer portal. Because if you look, that's actually, successful teams have that happen to them. It happens with these teams that are pretty darn good because guys who are backups are realizing I'm not going to be able to play next year. It does happen with, schools that are in flux and don't know what their coaching situation is. Take a look at Arkansas. Last I saw, 17 in the portal in the first couple of hours. But it's going to happen to Baylor too because they're good. And last year it didn't happen. They didn't have many guys go in the portal, partially because I don't know how many of them had great film because the team sucked. But so far, let's keep you up to date here. Alvin Abaselli, the tackle, is in the portal. Keon Roberts-Day is the one that entered on Monday. And then DeQuan Finn is not in the portal yet, but he is applying for a medical red shirt with the intention to play next year. So chances are he will be in that portal looking for a place where he can start, of course. But that is the one that has not been nailed down yet, but certainly looks like a guy who will be entering the transfer portal. Keon Roberts-Day is the one that's the most recent. And while he has had a role these last couple of years, he has not been it's a position that Baylor is going to look at pretty hard through the transfer portal. That being, those kind of outside linebackers / line edge guys who can get after the passer. And Keon Roberts-Day was certainly supposed to be that. Kind of an interesting one because he is not a Texas high school guy, so not the typical Baylor recruit, but is only a redshirt sophomore, so has a couple more years of eligibility. Was playing a lot of special teams last year, but saw a little bit of defense this year and last. A guy who came in with some hype to be a pretty good pass rusher after that 2021 dominant defense went out the door and just hasn't necessarily come to fruition here at Baylor. So you look at that and a guy like Alvin Abaselli, who was a guy you absolutely saw on the field, but at a position in tackle where Baylor feels good about their future and felt good about their depth at the end of this regular season. So in terms of, good solid player, but in terms of your rotation, not losing much there. Speaking of the offensive line, they have already made some contacts. One being Tajh Buchanan, a tackle from the University of, I almost said Utah, but he's a tackle from Texas Tech. a guard from Texas Tech. See, this is what happens when you get all these portal guys and you start to get them mixed up. But I promise you that Tajh Buchanan is a guard from Texas Tech. And he said to Steve Wiltfong of On3, some schools that have already hit me: Georgia Tech, Stanford, Tulane, Cal, and Baylor. Or Cal said they're going to hit him, but the rest have hit him. And one of them is Baylor. I love the way that Baylor's offensive line has been going since the spring transfer portal of last year. They brought in a couple guys. Colton Thomason got some snaps. Sidney Fugard got big-time gameplay the last few games, was a big part of that offensive line's resurgence. So they have brought in some veteran athletic guys. Obviously couldn't have Kurt Daniker on the line this year. Their big guard from Ohio that they brought in through the transfer portal. So this would be kind of the replacement of that through the resurgence of this offensive line under Mason Miller. The other guy, another position we're going to be talking about a lot, is wide receiver. We've talked about it before. There's going to be a ton. We talked about it with Micah Hudson. There's going to be a ton of guys who are out of their eligibility, right? I think we went over it then. It was Ashton Hawkins and Ketron Jackson, and Monterey Baldwin went through senior day festivities. So there's going to be a lot of openings outside of Josh Cameron at the wide receiver position. Hal Presley's another one who went through the senior day festivities. And so that is something they're going to need to go and get out of the portal and really attack that position hard. Obviously, receiver is one that is, the portal is just littered with that position. And one guy, Big 12 great, that I want to bring into this, and some guy that Baylor should be looking at, is Nic Anderson of Oklahoma. Now, he has entered the portal and is being shopped around the rest of the SEC, but this is a guy who is a big-time playmaker in a short amount of time at OU. Did not play much this year. He only played a couple of snaps. Brent Venables said it was a significant tear in his quad. So that kept him out the whole season. But you look back at last year when he was a redshirt freshman, and he was breaking records at OU. Okay, he has the all-time reception record in a season for freshmen at Oklahoma. And oh, by the way, you might remember him from the game-winning touchdown in the Red River game against UT last year from Dylan Gabriel to Nic Anderson. So he's a Texas guy. He's a Katy native, big-time 4-star recruit out of high school, and big playability. I mean, again, that 38 receptions, that was the OU freshman record, and not a small sample size to go along with that. He was 21 yards a catch. So this is your classic burner downfield guy. And I'm going to say the same thing about Anderson that I say about Micah Hudson. It's like, why wouldn't you want to play in an offense like the one Baylor's got going? You know, these SEC schools say, oh, Baylor, because they haven't watched it. This Jake Spavital offense with Josh Cameron at the receiver position, Sawyer Robertson delivering the ball, and the way that they can open up space with that dominant run game and that offensive line that is pushing the pile and giving so much time for Sawyer Robertson to throw. Like, this is a team that is built on and is really hearkening on their offensive ability and their big play ability on offense. Well, here's a big play guy. Here he is, Nic Anderson. Like, compared to the OU offense he would have played in this year had he had more snaps, it is night and day to what you could be playing at or playing for at Baylor. Night and day. I mean, that was a draconian offense that OU was running this year. I don't know if it was the OC or if it was Jackson Arnold or whomever, but they could not put up the points unless they played Alabama, which is a reason why Alabama is not in the playoff. But again, Baylor's got to be an attractive landing spot for playmakers like Nic Anderson. Now, the only schools that we've heard rumblings about for him are SEC ones: LSU, Baylor's next opponent, Ole Miss, and Florida. Of course, Florida's got DJ Lagway, the Baylor legacy. Obviously, Lane Kiffin's running a great offense at Ole Miss. And so, yeah, I get that. But there's not many offenses in this country that are humming more than this Baylor one. And they've got all these guys coming back. I'm telling you, it's got to be a tough place to say no to if they come after you in the portal. and they've already gone after Tajh Buchanan. Could Nic Anderson, the playmaking wide receiver, be next? Because that is a position they need to really nail down with a couple of guys in this transfer portal window here. And of course, that's another position, again, where you'll get even more names thrown into the hats, so to speak, after the spring games and the spring practices. So something to look for. Now let's go outside the box a little bit, and a quarterback from the Big 12 that I think should and maybe will give Baylor a look here. But first, let me tell you about our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you placed your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So wide receiver, offensive line, we'll take a look at some of the back end of the defensive backfield in the coming days and weeks. Those are all rational places for Baylor to look in the transfer portal. And not to say that this next position is irrational, but maybe a little bit outside the box. And that position is quarterback. Okay. I know what you guys are saying. You've got the guy. And we do. We've got the guy with Sawyer Robertson. And in fact, I really like the next guy down the line in Edward Griffin. And Nate Bennett in a pinch. Yes, friend of the show. We like Nate Bennett. But we have seen year after year, Baylor attack that position in the transfer portal for some stability, some insurance policy, right? And if Nate Bennett is a guy who isn't ready to step in next year, which, could be true. He's only just finished up his first year on campus. Edward Griffin will be a true freshman, probably not ready for him to just go in just yet. Then I think there's absolutely an argument to be made that they should go after Isaac Wilson of Utah. It sounds crazy, but I can see a scenario right now where Baylor should look at Isaac Wilson of Utah to bring him in for some depth, if nothing else. And from Isaac Wilson's standpoint, again, this is a pretty nice spot to go if you're an offensive player, especially a quarterback. Because let's look at the guy that's there right now in Sawyer Robertson. He came in through the transfer portal, a year or two after being recruited as a 4-star guy out of high school in Lubbock. And he comes to Baylor to be the backup, even though he can probably go a couple of different, lower level places and compete for the starting job. He comes to Baylor to be the backup, and he gets thrown into the fire early in 23. And, a bunch of fans had written him off. And then he comes in this year and he is a superstar. Okay. It just took some time. And it took some time to learn under a veteran guy, much like we hear about with the NFL all the time. Come in, hold the clipboard for a veteran guy, and when it's your time, you've learned a lot of things. Isaac Wilson can do with that because he comes in this year, thrown into the fire after Cam Rising gets hurt, and it's not always pretty. And in fact, the Utah fans made it known that it was not always pretty for Zach Wilson's little brother down there in Salt Lake. And the numbers, they're not great. 1,500 yards in almost a full season, by the way. Only completes 56% of his passes, 10 touchdowns to 11 picks. And the 122nd rated quarterback rating by ESPN in FBS. So it wasn't great. And obviously wasn't a great year for Utah. And it just felt like they were behind the 8 ball all the time. And so with Isaac Wilson going into the portal, the hot name is going to be BYU, right? That's where his brother played. There's obviously a relationship there between Kalani Sitake and the Wilson family. Of course, if he wanted to play for the same coaches that Zach did, he might be heading to Kansas to play for Jeff Grimes. But there's obviously a connection there. and a history with BYU that would make them a very interesting spot for Isaac Wilson. But outside of a place like that, I think two things. First, there's not going to be many Power 4 places that'll be a soft landing spot for Isaac Wilson after this year they just had. So it's either you go down into, a group of 5 and have a good shot to be a starter, or most likely you're going somewhere to be the backup. And so if it's BYU, we get that. There's a connection there. Maybe it's Kansas because his brother did well under Jeff Grimes. But Baylor should be a spot you're looking at if you're a quarterback looking to kind of resurrect your career and avoid something like the Alan Bowman situation at Michigan. Because you look at the stable that they've got, the stable of horses that they'll have on offense. God forbid something did happen to Sawyer Robertson during the season. You got some pretty good weapons to go with, be it in the run game or, some of their weapons, even the ones who are already coming back that they need to replenish the wide receiver room, but you still got Josh Cameron and Michael Trigg coming back. So it's not like there's going to be, no one to throw to if you have to come into this game. The way it was for Sawyer Robertson in 2023, it certainly felt that way. So you look at that, a good situation in terms of a team that's hot. They've got a good recruiting class coming in. They're going to be attracting a lot of portal receivers that you can work with. And they've got the OC. Like, they've got him. We did this all, the last couple of weeks of last season when we were looking at Jake Spavital. Like, look at the quarterbacks he's worked with. Right? I mean, Manziel and Murray and Will Grier and Brandon Whedon, if we want to go back that far. And all these guys who have had a ton of success at the college level. And his first quarterback he develops at Baylor becomes an all Big 12 quarterback, at least an all Big 12 caliber quarterback right away. So if you're looking for a soft landing spot in a place where you're going to probably be the backup no matter what, like, Baylor should be a good destination for that. And no shade to Jeff Grimes, because I think you saw the turnaround that Kansas had this year. But if you're looking for a quarterback developer, like, this is the spot. This is where you're going to find one. And with Baylor, they've got some young guys. Edward Griffin will be here. Nate Bennett will obviously be here like he was this year. That they might be too young to just get thrown into a situation. Isaac Wilson, he's done that. He's played that. He played it the whole year and fought gallantly, honestly, for a bad Utah team, and was really trying to figure it out on the fly. Here, you are going to have the answers to the test because you have Jake Spavital as your QB coach and offensive coordinator. And you'll be learning under a hell of a quarterback in Sawyer Robertson, right? So, and you're still playing big-time football. You're in the Big 12. I know your fan base might, for some reason, think it's the worst conference in America, even though they sucked in it too. But trust me, this is pretty good, high-level college football at the Power 4 level, especially at the quarterback position. Because if there's 2 quarterbacks in this conference better than Sawyer Robertson, it's got to be the best quarterback conference in America. So, Isaac, I would think about it. I would think about it, man. Jeff will tell you all the great things about Waco. He still likes it here. Okay? So it's outside the box, yeah. But I could absolutely see Baylor giving Isaac Wilson a look and Isaac Wilson giving Baylor a look. Again, he's probably not going to come here to be a legacy quarterback. You probably do it, and then you're in the portal a year from now or 2 years from now. But he's coming off his true freshman season. He's got all kinds of eligibility left. This is where you can come and develop. A lot of college players aren't interested in that anymore, but when you weigh your options, it's probably not a bad option to go somewhere big time and develop under a real quarterback guru like Jake Spavital. At least that's the way I see it. Let me know what you think. Drop that down in the comments below. And if you like the video, It helps out a ton. Or if you're listening, tweet at us how much you like it. And tell your friends to listen, because I get more money when you listen rather than you watch. But I like it here on YouTube. Anyway, not a great day for Baylor basketball. Let's just keep it at that. We'll tell you why it was not a great day for Baylor basketball coming up next on Locked On Baylor. Omaha Steaks, one of my favorites, absolutely. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of my favorite Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, you can score an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners here at Locked On Baylor get an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE, COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Don't miss out on this. Don't miss out on that. Get to Omaha Steaks today. So the AP poll came out today. Came out yesterday for college basketball. And for the first time since 2003, both Baylor men's and women's basketball are not in the top 25. Did anyone think this would be the year that was going to happen? Not me. Not me. In fact, the last time Baylor was unranked was the year they started the year number 5. That was back in 22-23. Remember that? They lost the first 3 conference games. Oh, it was bad. It was bad. But now, for the first time since the worst year in Baylor basketball history, for plenty of reasons, 2003, neither team is ranked. I saw that today, and I just thought, like, what? Like, how did we get here so quickly? Like, I don't know, a month ago, I was on this podcast saying, like, both these men's and women's teams should be challenging for the regular season Big 12 title. And now here we are, December 10th, and they're both unranked. Like, yeah, it's okay to say this has been a disappointment so far. I mean, how can you not say that? They're both unranked. And the ladies are going to have a tough sledding to get back into the top 25 or the top 15, top 10 anyway, which is where they should be, because it's going to be a couple weeks before they get conference play. And they don't have very meaningful games until then. And it's the same for the men. Now, what's shocking to me for the men is they were 15th in their last game. They go up to Stores, they lose a couple starters, and they lose by 4 on the home court of the back-to-back national champions. And that apparently is enough to drop you 11 spots in the AP poll. 11 spots. Now, again, don't get me wrong, but this has been a disappointing start to the season. You got to start winning these ranked matchups. They're 2-3 in those ranked matchups. I'm not saying that, like, oh, they should still be in the top 10 because look at their quality losses. That's for SEC football to talk about, not for us here in Big 12 basketball. But that loss drops you 11 spots. In fact, UConn had a still pretty good win after that. They went to UT and beat the Longhorns. Shouldn't that make the loss more quality? Why? I mean, think about the loss you have to drop 11 spots. One game last week, and they drop 11 spots. That bugs me. I get it. The AP doesn't matter, but this is what we look back on. These are the rankings of record, so to speak. And that really baffles me. And it does show you how different college basketball is from college football in terms of just taking quality losses into account, which I don't have any problem with. I think football takes that too far. You got to win these games. And I think it is okay to say that this has been a disappointment so far. They've played the toughest schedule in the country, but you do that with the idea of you're a pretty good basketball team and you're going to win more often than you lose. And right now, when it comes to those ranked matchups, they have not won more than they've lost. And it's only going to get tougher after these 2 weeks of jokes, right? The Abilene Christians and the Arlington Baptists and the whatevers of the world. Because then you've got Big 12 basketball. And, you better hope you've had the teachable moments here in the non-con. Because, yeah, those losses aren't going to hurt you. But you're playing that quality of competition every night in the Big 12. I mean, every night. Okay, so Tennessee and Gonzaga were 1 and 2 on Evan Mia for a while there. And Auburn's right up there too, of course. And so those are the very best. But, you look at those two and St. John's and UConn, that's what you're facing in the Big 12. So, okay, those two were the very best. You know who were 1 and 3 in the preseason poll? It's like Kansas and Houston. And Iowa State was 4. Like, these are the teams that are ahead of you. Those are the teams you got to play in this conference night in, night out. And, oh, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this, but West Virginia beat Gonzaga. Colorado beat UConn. Like, these are, other Cincinnati is skyrocketing in this non-conference schedule. It's not just those 3 teams that were ahead of you. This is, once again, I don't know if you've heard this one before, the best basketball conference in America. So this is a real, look at ourselves in the mirror kind of stretch here. And it shouldn't take falling out of the top 25 to get there, but that might be what it is. Of like, wow, really? We dropped 11. Like, that's what they think about us. That we dropped 11 spots after just 1 loss in a pretty tough game. But as I said after that UConn game, and I'll say it again, at some point you got to win those games. You just have to. Like, if you're going to be a team that's that good, you've got to win those games. But if you're going to use the excuse that it was on the home floor of the back-to-back national champs and it was close all the way throughout, or Scott Drew wants to pull out any metric that he wants to make the team look better, then that's how you're going to fall out of the top 25. But it's getting pretty close to put up or shut up time for this Baylor team and potentially this program of, being the difference between, Final Four Big 12 contenders and being just good, middle of the pack Big 12 teams, which they were for a long time before that national championship victory. Obviously, they're not going to win the national championship every year, but I think this program has the coaching staff, has the resources, and has the talent to be a program that competes for the Big 12 championship every year, and wins it every couple of years and gets past the second round of the NCAA tournament. But that's what we got to look at right now. And maybe this is the wake-up call that both programs are outside of the top 25, because that's a real disappointment at this point of the year. But plenty of time to turn it around, just like this football team did, because after all, Baylor is a football school. Let me know if you agree down in the comments below. Let me know what you think about the transfer portal exits, who they should be looking at to come in. Is the Isaac Wilson thing way too off base? And what do you feel about this basketball season so far? Has it been a disappointment? Did they deserve to drop out of the top 25? Are those two things mutually exclusive? Drop that down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. We are on the march towards 4,000 subscribers, which would be an awesome milestone for this channel. And you guys are the big reason why. You have been keeping this thing going. And I really, really appreciate that. The numbers are as good as they've ever been. And that's because of you guys. So thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.